Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about exclamation marks. Exclamation marks are a piece of punctuation, fairly straightforward, fairly easy to understand for the most part. The real trick with exclamation marks is figuring out when or if to use them. So the exclamation mark is a sort of straight up and down line with a dot underneath it. I'll put an image of one up on the screen. Basically, this is a signal at the end of a sentence in English and many other languages. I'll explain why I mentioned that in just a second. That conveys excitement or energy or enthusiasm or happiness. It's a way of saying, yay! It's a celebratory punctuation mark. That's what it does. Its function is basically simple and straightforward. It indicates that you are excited, you are enthusiastic, you are happy, whatever it is. Part of the reason that I mentioned at the end of a sentence in English is because in some other languages, like Spanish, for instance, there is an upside down, I'd call it an upside down exclamation mark, with the line at the bottom and the dot at the top that comes at the beginning of a sentence, which is used to let people know from the beginning of the sentence that this is an excited, enthusiastic, happy statement. I actually think that's a really, really good innovation. It's not something we do in English, so you have to get to the end of the sentence to get the punctuation mark to know that this is an exclamation mark sentence. But that is the way that it works in English. We just have the end punctuation for it. So, the real trick with exclamation marks is figuring out when or if to use them. Now, if you're me, you pretty much just never use exclamation marks. I have used exclamation marks, but almost never. To me, it is not a piece of punctuation that I find particularly useful, in part because the way that I tend to look at it is if you can't convey through the writing of the sentence itself that this is exciting, happy, good news, whatever it is, then the sentence itself is not really doing the work. And it's not a great idea to rely on punctuation to create that kind of enthusiasm. So that's part of the reason that I don't tend to use them. The other thing is the exclamation mark is kind of the cheerleader of punctuation, and just by instinct, that's not me. I am a Wednesday Addams type person much more than I am a rah-rah go team type person. And so just intuitively, I am not drawn to the exclamation mark. That doesn't mean you don't have to be drawn to the exclamation mark. You can be a much more excited, happy, upbeat person than I am, and that's totally fine. If you are the type of person who likes exclamation marks, be cautious with them. One of the risks with exclamation marks, particularly with overuse of exclamation marks, is that it can come across as inauthentic or patronizing, even. You know, those 80s movies where somebody would go to a summer camp and the counselors would be just annoyingly peppy, and their role was to be obnoxious. Exclamation marks, when used to excess, can give you that sort of vibe. Like, this person is just driving me nuts with their relentless optimism type thing. And even people who are optimists, even people who are upbeat, can feel that. So you want to use exclamation marks with restraint. One exclamation mark is sufficient in most situations. This So like if you're doing the internet meme thing, right, where it's like putting a ton of exclamation marks with question marks thrown in and whatever, fine. At that point, you're doing a meme thing. You're not punctuating as such. But there is a tendency that some people like where they will put 3 exclamation marks. No good reason to. In most writing. If you're making like a happy birthday banner or something like that, fine. Use as many exclamation marks as you want. But for most writing tasks, emails, essays, reports, anything like that, 1 exclamation mark is sufficient if you're going to use them at all. The other thing that I would say, and the reason I mention this is because this current semester I actually saw this in my students' writing. When you are delivering bad news, no exclamation marks. So one of the assignments that I do with my business writing students is they have to write messages based in real-world business communication scenarios. And one of the messages they have to write is delivering bad news. It is a negative message. Even if you are trying to end the message on a positive note, which is a really good strategy for delivering bad news, do not use exclamation marks. Because again, exclamation marks suggest happiness, excitement, enthusiasm. And when you're delivering bad news, those are not the emotions you want associated with that message. So you want to be cautious about when, where, and why you're using exclamation marks. Their basic function is fairly simple and straightforward to understand. So again, the real challenge is about the strategy of where and how they get deployed.